Hi,
Kent.
surprise.
So great to see you. It's a
Likewise.
very special episode because you're the first person to be on our podcast twice.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's how special you are to me or to On The
Oh,
Roadcast.
thank you. I'm going to cheers you
Well,
with my latte.
well, cheers. It's also what 5:30 a.m. for you right now.
It
We just
is.
talked about this previously to recording. You're getting up pretty early these days.
I mean, and it's a vicious cycle because then, like I was saying, I'm trying to watch television at 7 p.m. and I'm already falling asleep on the couch. So I just go to bed and then I get up even earlier. But I'm definitely a morning person, which is hilarious considering the path I've gone on my whole life where my work is in the evening. But I think that's evolved with age too, for sure, like, but when I'm home, like it's so peaceful. And I think even, especially when I was managing NoFX, like this is a time of day when no one's bothering me. Like when I'm ready, I can open my emails, and if a European tour is coming, then maybe I can talk to someone. But it's really
Right.
like, except for waking up to what insanity might have come through my various messaging systems the night before while I was sleeping, which, now that NoFX is retired, there's none of that. There's the NoFX crew chat that will live forever. I wake up to those guys mostly sending memes and, saying funny things and talking shit. But
Yeah, let me touch on to that actually, because you have been with NoFX for so many years, and that chapter of your life just ended. And the reason I have you again in the podcast is because we've talked to you before about touring in general. You are a double threat. You're doing tour management and front of house, and you did that for NoFX for many years. I want to more focus on the audio part today, but
good.
still, how did you do that for so many years with a band that is knowingly so insane in a good
Yeah.
way? But how did you do that double duty for so many years, and how
Oh,
do you feel now that it's over?
well, oh man, that's a lot of question. I mean, first of all, the double duty, I mean, that's the part that, all my touring friends see, but I was also, I mean, I essentially co-managed the band with Mike most of those years. I booked every Japan tour they ever did. I booked every Australian tour. I booked domestically in North America for 10 years. I booked all of the South American tours we did. So I really did a lot, but I managed to do it because we evolved into it because we didn't know any better, again, I tell people this all the time. I was a kid that just wanted to mix punk bands. That was my whole aspiration. And that's why NoFX took me to Europe the first time in 1992. So, it's a while ago. And a year later, no one had ever been the tour manager, so I was like, "Oh, I'll do it." And then no one had, when actually, I love this story, Mike. When Green Day and The Offspring blew up, there were all these kind of like I always called them lawyer manager, like LA types. Back then you could still get $1 million advance from a record company, and there were all these predatory managers trying to get punk bands to sign to major labels just so they could take 20% off the top of these huge advances that still existed. And after taking a couple of meetings, Mike literally walked into the original 930 Club. I'll remember it till the day I die, and looked at me and said, "You're the manager now. I'm never doing that again." And I was like, "Okay." So we just made it all up as we went. And, I had a lot of help. I brought in a legend that was Steve Garrett, who actually took over running the whole ship for a couple of years when I took a break from them in 2018 and 2019. And then I had Jay Reynolds, who is currently managing what's left of NoFX. There's no touring. So once there was no touring, I left because that was really, my strength. But I mean, we didn't know any better. That they didn't know any better. So that's how I got away with doing everything.
Still crazy, so admirable all the things you did, and
Mm.
yeah. Do you have a lot of time to golf now, or what's the
I
what's the current
did.
situation?
It was crazy because you know, my year after NoFX, I planned to just do fun stuff. So I was doing some propaganda dates, and the Dance Hall Crashers had reunited. So I'm doing their stuff as long as it fit into my schedule. And then, as you will remember, I hurt myself exactly a year ago snowboarding. and I had to miss the tour I was looking the most forward to of the whole year, which you so kindly covered mixing propaganda for me, which is such a fun thing to do. I ended up doing one show with them last year. So, and then we moved, and then, then I took a job that didn't work out that I won't go into. And then I had a choice of a couple of things to do in the fall, and I chose the wrong one because it kind of fell apart. So the short answer is all I've done is golf. And then when it snowed, I golf and snowboard. And living in Denver, well, sort of between Denver and the mountains where we live in the foothills, like I'll go snowboard Powder one day and then go down to Fort Collins. Legendary mixer Jason Livermore, who is at the Blasting Room with Bill Stevenson, is a golfer. So I've been going to Fort Collins and playing a ton of golf with him, and he's got a whole group of like misfit, like not golf world type of golfers. But, and I don't know if this needs to go on the podcast or not. I very recently took a full-time job with a company based in Ireland, although they're worldwide, and they do a bunch of this sort of immersive entertainment. The biggest thing they do is called Bingo Loco, and they have not made it to Austria yet, but it started in Dublin 9 years ago, and they've got all these other, entertainment products, for lack of a better word, and they kind of headhunted me. I'd put a resume on Indeed.com, which is like a job, like a place where people look
Like
for
LinkedIn?
jobs. It's like LinkedIn, sort of. It's more directly like for companies trying to hire and people trying to look for jobs. And I kind of posted my resume there just for a laugh because I was like, I don't know. And then kind of ignored the emails that would come about jobs that they thought, like they were sending me jobs for like restaurant management, because I managed venues for a couple of years. And the one of the founders of the company saw my resume and then hunted me down on Instagram and was like, hey, I have a role that would be perfect for you. Are you into a conversation? And I met this fella and he's incredible. And I was like, all right, I'll work for this guy. And then we had a sort of an in-depth interview, and I haven't done a fucking job interview in my whole life before that. And they gave me the job. So now I work full-time from home.
Is that an audio or a management position?
It's booking, actually. So this guy booked all these events. This guy booked himself, and now there's like a booking team they put together because this company is really big with a ton of momentum. Like they came in, they were very happy he posted not that long ago that they're like right in the middle of the 1,000 fastest growing companies in Europe. So there's like, 200 people worldwide working there, and I'm working with a couple of really cool people. Everyone loves to be there. I've only been at it about 2 weeks, but I love it. But again,
Amazing.
this is more a personal update than for the audio side of the podcast.
Well,
But
I mean, that leads me to a question. Will you be touring anymore or in the future having a full-time job now?
and that's the thing, and it's funny because in my second interview with one of the first things I said was, one problem I have here is I've got some commitments in 2026, not a ton, but a couple of things, they're in both cases, they're with old and dear friends, and I don't want to let them go. And, he was like, well, we're a very European model. We take work-life balance very seriously. The role comes with 4 weeks vacation, plus all the major holidays in the US. And I kind of did the math, and it works out perfectly because I've got weekends with Dance Hall Crashers where I still get to be the front of house mixer as well as the TM. And that's super easy, like just hanging out with old friends. And then I'm tour managing Billy Talent on a tour of Europe that's exactly 3 weeks. So that's going to use 3 weeks of my 4 weeks vacation. And then the odd days I need for the other stuff, we'll use the rest. So I'm working through my whole vacation in 2026. But after pretty much taking 2025 off, I'm okay with that. And, it's going to remain. Yeah. And then after that, it's going to remain to be seen. I mean, I think the amount that Dance Hall Crashers want to do, which is just a few shows a year, and hopefully Japan, like I think I can work that in for sure. But, if this job goes as well as I hope it does, I don't think I'll do much more touring than that, at least in the near future.
Is that like a chapter where you're like, I've seen and done so much. I'm happy to retire from
It,
being on the
abs-
road.
Absolutely. I mean, there's still going to be some travel. In fact, one of the things these guys do is electronic orchestra, and it's like an EDM show with a live orchestra and a DJ. And they're doing it at a venue in San Francisco, oddly enough, because I lived there for so long that I've never been to. So on Friday morning, I'm going to fly to San Francisco and see the production. And these bigger format events these guys do is largely what I'm going to be working on booking. So I'm going to go and see this from all sides and see the production. And, since my
Mhm.
experience is so wide in this industry, hopefully I can contribute on all sides of it to some degree, but we'll see. So, yeah,
Well,
I
you're used to handling a lot of chaos, definitely.
right. I definitely, I don't think it would be the end of the world if I never fully tour again. I'm twice your age now, exactly, like to the year, which I didn't know.
So, if I'm in a quarter life crisis or midlife crisis, are you in a
You're not
crisis too?
mid. I'm not in a crisis at all. And if I'm in a midlife crisis, I'm going to live to 120. So that would be good. I think if I do the math, you're probably in a third life crisis.
A
So,
third life crisis, yeah.
yeah, I mean, you're definitely going to make it past 60. I would imagine. I
Well,
mean,
knock on wood.
you fucking better. I mean, of course, no, none of us know. Tomorrow's not promised, but
Well, we all know how the industry and the touring takes a toll on you and how hard it is
oof,
to take care of yourself. But I'm trying
yeah,
my best.
you're doing
Well, I
great.
just mentioned handling chaos and such. I was always so interested in how when you mix something like NoFX or a punk show like that, that is so unpredictable. How do you instantly react to things that happen on stage? And did you ever have a moment where like you were surprised, or are you like, whatever happens, like these guys can't scare me anymore?
Yeah, it's not much can scare me. I definitely would be surprised from time to time because of the amount of insanity that happens. But, as long as you're paying attention, it's pretty easy to roll with. I mean, it's funny with NoFX, I did it for so long that there was not much in the last few years that could surprise me, that's for sure. But there was, we had some crazy shit for sure. We did a lot for a long time. Um, Yeah, is that a fair answer? I mean,
It is, yeah. And how did the job for you, like speaking of front of house mixing for a band like NoFX, how did the job change for you over the years? Like you probably started out on like analog gear to later on like full production and whatnot. How did it change over the years?
well, it's funny you ask that because it changed. I mean, the the invention of digital, that's not the right terminology I'm looking for, but when digital took over, it
The
changed for a
implication of
lot.
digital technology.
Yeah, exactly. The implication of digital technology was a huge change for me, and at first a little bit negative because you had to relearn, not just relearn your workflow. Like I didn't relearn how to mix. In fact, if I had one criticism of younger engineers, yourself excluded, but you see them like get into the minutia, like and there's some argument for having a signal chain with 5 compressors and 3 EQs and all that, but I always tried to apply it. I was in a world where I would show up, especially mixing in clubs where you had 24 channels, you had 4 gates, and you had 4 comps, and you made it work. So of course it's great that the amount of inserts you can have is unlimited, but I think you can kill yourself with it as well. But more to the point of how it changed for me, having to learn it was a bit of a struggle for sure, but I'm absolutely open to struggle and technology. And I love technology because it's made my life easier in so many ways. And the biggest for me, because obviously in the analog days, we never carried production. We carried backline and you dealt with whatever control you got. So if you could imagine going out to a festival, like the Bazaar Festival in Germany is one we did a lot of times. And you go out to some house console, and depending on the level of care from your house engineer, the console might be just a mess. And you kind of just gotta try to zero it out and guess where your channels should be, which of course you kind of know where to rough them in. But then I also had the struggle of fighting Mike to write a set list half hour before the set was starting so I could print that so I could leave to front of house. So I would get, I mean, I had some festival starts that I'm glad it's pre-YouTube and fucking cell phones, because I'm sure, I mean, I'm not sure. I remember them just being atrocious, just like a total fucking mess. And you're just scrambling like, why is this? Why is that? Oh my God, that compressor's destroying the bass. Oh my God, the vocal's thin. Oh, somebody high passed it to 600. Like, what the fuck are people doing on these channels?
Oh,
Because, you know, a festival patch, your vocal channels are vocal channels. Anyway, so, you know, cut to, I don't know, 2010, whenever the hell it was, when suddenly you could almost count on there being a profile at front of house and I could just run out and plug in a stick. I mean, the starts were so infinitely better that there's nothing better to me. And, you know, now,
it can still be scary
oh, of course,
if
it's
it's a
always
console
scary.
you're not fluent. Because the thing is, when you don't have time and you work on an analog house desk, which nowadays doesn't really happen anymore, at least you know this one knob has this one function,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
know you know what to do. It's gonna take you a while, but you know what to do and where to find it.
Well, yeah, and
Whereas
it's
if you
all right in
go
front of you.
And whereas if you go, you're at a festival and you just do whatever on stage and you rush to front of house and you have like 10 minutes left and you have a console that you're not really fluent in, and maybe a house engineer who just like fucked off or doesn't care,
Yeah,
you're like,
yeah.
oh, where do I find anything in this?
No, no.
So
Every
it can also be a little challenging if you don't have a
that
file.
I mean, that really speaks to the challenge early on for me in converting to digital, is like so much
Mm,
shit can be hidden from you, you know, like you hit one wrong button and you know, you're sending effects to themselves very easily and dumb shit like that, you know. And so
feedback.
yeah, I love
Yeah.
feedback. If there's no
Oh, who doesn't?
feedback, you're not trying hard enough.
Oh no, I hate it.
Yeah,
Well,
me too.
um, another question about the whole mixing approach in punk, especially. Is there anything where you're like, this is a go-to thing that I always do, the first thing I always do, because I just think it's how punk music's supposed to sound, or something that you're like, this is my biggest advice to anyone who would go mix a band like that?
You know, it's funny. I just saw, and I don't think you've even aired the episode with Rory yet, but I saw the clip of you and Rory
It's out.
talking. Is it?
It
Oh,
came out
good.
last week. Yeah.
I've had no time to ingest anything like that. Anyway, what Rory said, you know, I think it was a key piece of advice was, you know, don't use too much EQ. That's my like number
Mhm.
one. You know, I think engineers try too hard to hear themselves, to be heard in the mix, when really what you want is ultimately transparency. Like, I want to take whatever sound you're making on stage as my artist and just make it louder, you know. And as far as mixing,
Yeah.
try to put everything in the right place as quickly as possible. I think vocals are more important than a lot of engineers give them credit for. And I mean, especially, you know, I was in, Mike would kill me if he heard this, but luckily I'll never watch it, pop punk. But like any, you know, any pop rock based thing, like if the vocal isn't sitting on top like it is in records, that's not what the audience want. And I think sometimes, you know, but you also have to make everything louder than everything else, and that's a crucial, you know, a
Mhm.
trick, obviously. And then you know, get separation. And I usually found that if I didn't over EQ my channels and let them breathe, and then I could find the separation in my main EQ, almost kind of just like mastering my mix, you know, like a couple of little notches where things are running into each other usually kind of opens it up. And my dear friend Ron, who does front of house for Bad Religion, told me a long time ago, he's like, you always get the best separation. And, you know, he was a mentor to me. So, you know, hearing something like that from a mentor was very
I met
kind.
him. I met him recently at Punk in the Park in Boston. I had a very long talk with him. Good thing you remind me. I'm gonna shoot him a message and ask him
You
to
got to
come on the
get him
podcast.
on here. He's got the best
Oh
stories
yeah,
of
he's a
anyone in the
genius.
world. He's great.
Right.
So, yeah. So, I mean, that was my key. Don't EQ too much, and then fine tune it somewhere that you're comfortable. For me, because there was always a graphic on left and right looking me right in the face in the analog days. I've always done it that way. And, when I did bigger bands and got to carry control, I was like, oh, maybe I should be doing it on a fucking lake or something. And then I'd always just go back to my left and right EQ. And, now you can just press a button and it's right in front of you on your faders, like on the S6L and any console that's built with any sense in it. And yeah.
That's really interesting because I just recently had a conversation with an engineer who does a lot of pop music, who tours with own PA and own system engineer, who told me never touch the graphic on your digital desk because it just fucks up face so much. He's like, if you do that, use a parametric EQ on your master bus, but if you can't help it, go to talk to the system guy and tell him to make the changes. And I'm like, well, that's a different world that we live in, but
Yeah,
I
no,
get the
exactly.
approach.
I
I
and
get the
and yeah,
approach.
I mean, a good system person. I mean, that's obviously a different level. I had the good fortune of having a gentleman named Caesar, who's based in Berlin, as my system guy in Europe the last 3 years. And I flew him out to LA to do the NoFX very final shows. And even like the LA crew, who were all like super well trained at L Acoustics, were blown away at how good this guy was. I did not need to use my EQ if I had him for sure. But again, super fine tuning for me, unless the system's just a piece of shit and I never learned how to get into the system side of stuff. So if you're just relying on whatever local, you got to do it somewhere. And I certainly wasn't carrying an outboard piece of gear to do it. But, it's messy. You don't hear that little bit of phase. And certainly no one in your audience hears it, although I do understand that point for sure.
It's just a very different genre. It's a very different size of show, but I like hearing all the approaches of different engineers. That's the main reason why I'm doing this. It's just very
Yeah.
interesting how people approach their mixes and their workflow. So, one more question about the whole NoFX history that you have. Did you have any moment where you were standing up front of house and were like, "This is insane," like a very crazy, like I don't know what's happening moment,
You mean like in a good way? Like,
or bad?
oh, okay, well, got a couple of stories. I definitely have a handful of moments where my mind was blown. Like, holy shit, look where I am now. And this is like I had a long gone venue in London called the Astoria. Frank Turner sings about it. It did all the punk shows forever. It was 1,000-ish cap theater in the middle of town, and I remember because the UK was the last region in Europe to catch on to NoFX. And I remember mixing
Mhm.
in the balcony when they had sold out that place. And this is probably 96, still fairly early on. And like being able to see the whole dance floor. And, they kicked into Linoleum or whatever they opened with. And it sounded great already because we'd had a good sound check. And the whole place, the whole dance floor was moving like that. And it was just like, wow. Like, I just, 4 years earlier was a kid working in a 300 cap club, which is where I met NoFX as the house sound guy. And, then suddenly I was in London, England with this massive sold out show. I definitely had a few moments like that around that time in Germany, when we would go and play. Like Bazaar Fest was the first one where the band played in front of like 20, 30,000 people. And, once I had a handle on the mix there, which didn't come as easily as I said earlier. That was mind blowing. Um, I have a way, way back on my first tour. We drank a lot and partied a lot. And one day we were in a club called the Underground in Cologne. And, this was when I was mixing monitors from front of house a lot of the time in these sides of like 300, 400, 500 cab club. So I had a whole rack of graphic EQs beside me, and the show was going fine and everything was cool. And the lights, like the power supply would have the lights at the top of the rack were bugging me. And I think I was pretty drunk on Jägermeister by then. The band had been playing for a while, which I usually didn't start drinking until the band went on. So once I had a handle on it, it was fine if I was buzzed by the end. But I decided the lights were bothering me on this rack because it was up high. So I went to turn the lights off, so I thought, but I hit the power switch, which somehow all the EQ's power went out, but they didn't stop passing signals. So every speaker on the stage started massively
Unequed.
feeding back at
Oh my
once.
God.
And this, I'm pretty sure it was my first, if not my second tour with them. And I was like, oh my God, this is the end of my career. Except we were all wasted. I'm sure there's probably 10 stories I don't remember of similar quality, but I figured it out fairly quickly and turned it back on and everything was fine. And Mike probably told everyone that's our sound guy. He's an idiot. And we went on to fight another day. But that was the worst. Like, oops, I hit the wrong button for sure.
Scare. I once on an outdoor show, I was wearing a jacket and went to grab something, and the jacket caught onto the main fader, and I pushed it all the way up. That was my biggest oopsie. I was like, "Oh," and then put it back down. And
Yeah,
I feel
yeah.
like it was so quick. And people noticed something was wrong, but everyone was like,
Yeah.
"I don't know,
It
what the fuck."
the latency,
Happens.
especially of I think the latency of the brain of like the audience, and even like I won't go into detail, but I've fucked up something on a mix when the band manager standing right beside me, like me, accidentally muted a guitar that was the only instrument in the PA, and the manager didn't even flinch. Like, all right, you missed that. I survived. You know what I mean? Okay, it was Rise
Uh,
Against.
I got, I got, I got another one. No, they're not going to listen to this, so I can say it. It was Alpha Wolf, and I just did them as like a second band on a tour that I was on. And I had my effects mute DCA next to my main, and I like
Oh
mute
fuck
my
yeah.
effects in the in the speaking breaks, and I was like muting it. And then they tried to start the next show, and they were like, because they weren't in here, so they didn't realize. But then they didn't fill the sub, and then they stopped the
Yeah,
song,
yeah.
and I was like, what the? And it took me so long to realize. It took
Oh
me
fuck.
so fucking long.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then later I was like, I'm so fucking sorry. They were like, oh, it's fine. Like shit happens, but I will never forget.
Yeah.
Fuck ups.
No, I've muted the PA a couple of times here and there. I don't even remember exactly when. And usually for
So
such
it's
a
not
short
just me.
time, again, it's like you said, most, especially people not in audio are just like, what? I'm like, well, nothing.
Mm.
Oh, nothing. I had, oh
We're
my
only
God.
human.
So I mixed Green Day a couple of times. I mixed them in 1993,
Flex.
the end of, I guess it's a flex. I mean, I I mixed them in 1993 when they were supporting Bad Religion and before Dookie came out on one tour. And then we parted ways, and I won't. The flex is that they tried to steal me, and I decided to stay with NOFX, which was not a mistake on my part. But I went back because I had on the olden days on the Warp Tour, there were several Warp Tours where I would mix a second band because it was really like 45 minutes out of my day. Super easy, free money, like mix them, like basically this is my lunch break. I mean, NoFX would never complain about something like that anyway. But so in 2000, Green Day had kind of been on a break. They didn't have any staff. So they asked me to mix because I was already going to be on Warp Tour. And I did. And the very first show in Fresno, and this is analog, and this fucking awful Yamaha PM 3500, where the worst thing is they put the gains at the top of the fader and the pan at the top of the strip, which is insanity because anyone who's done analog knows that they go the other way around. But the very first show, Green Day starts and Billy starts singing, no vocal in the PA at all. And me and Kev, and this is actually the greatest part of this story for audio people, and this is actually my favorite flex about Green Day, is my system tech at the time was a man named Kevin Lemoyne, who we got the job mixing them immediately after that 2000 Warp Tour, and he still does it today, and he's fucking incredible. Anyone that's seen a Green Day show knows that it's incredible. But so he and I, that day, we were both scrambling to find why, it was like a VCA that was accidentally assigned that wasn't up or whatever, some dumb shit you can do. But yeah, and Kev's the best. I actually just sat behind him. My wife and I sat on his work box at the Riot Fest show when they closed Riot Fest last fall. It was such a joy. So I got him that job, and he has been very kind to me regarding it ever since because he worked out perfectly for it. That's my flex.
Yeah, that's big. I mean, if you have any sort of job like that for me, you have my
Good.
number.
Yeah. All right.
Thank God he didn't want to do Green Day. Okay, sure, I'm free.
Yeah, I could probably do that. It'll happen.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay, that reminds me of one more thing that happened to me too, which is talking about fuck ups now. Um,
I
I was
mean,
taking over a show for a colleague for an Austrian punk band, and he was in an SQ6 back then, and I was in an SQ6. And he just gave me his show file. I brought my SQ, and before I like loaded it at home and checked everything, but it was a festival show and it was silent sound check. And I checked with my headphones on. I had all the signals, and show starts. PA is open, no vocals, no snare, no kick. Everything else is there. And I'm like,
Jesus.
what the fuck? What the fuck? I just heard it on my headphones. And then later realized he had inserts turned on that if you listen to on your headphones, the listening point is before the insert or whatever, or
Yeah,
bypasses
yeah,
the
it's
insert.
pre. Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, so it started and the inserts were turned on because he had a bunch of outboard that he usually brought. And I did like adjust in my like headphone mix before that to like use whatever compressors on board and stuff like that. But when I sent it through the PA, the inserts points were still on and there was no
Right, because
vocals.
the
And
signal's trying to go and it goes nowhere, so it doesn't
it
return.
just, and I go back on the headphones and it's there. And I'm like, what the fuck? These things happen. And I like to hear that it happens to you too. It happens to me, even though I
Everyone,
have a couple years of experience.
everyone.
Everyone fucks up.
Yeah,
Don't get discouraged.
no, exactly. And it's a crazy business, especially when you're freelance, which of course most audio people are. It's crucial to be patient in low times because it's gonna pick right back up. This has been a weird spring. I've known more freelance people that are somehow lacking work this spring, and then in the summer there's fucking something for everyone.
I know. So my understanding or my thoughts are that after COVID, a lot of people had quit the industry, but a lot of bands started touring heavily again. So there were so many jobs for only a certain amount of touring people, and we were so busy these past like 3 4 years, and it was amazing. Now the whole COVID, like after COVID touring bubble is done. Every band has done a ton of touring and now they're taking breaks. But
Yeah,
again, more people joined the industry or came back to the industry, so now we have the opposite, more people looking for jobs and not enough positions available.
exactly.
It's tough. I'm still looking and I'm sending out resumes left and right. Maybe I should do LinkedIn or whatever.
I mean, and
And get recruited by
I,
a bingo company.
I mean, you never know. That's the thing. It's worth putting all your experience in one place and putting it on those
Right.
job sites. I don't know, besides LinkedIn, if there's something comparable to Indeed.com in Europe, but you should look into that. I mean, because you never know.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. You never know.
when you can do, what we do and travel the world and put out fires and, you know, keep people alive, you can do anything. Like that's a fact.
Oh
So
yeah. That's another nice takeaway from this episode. Fuck ups happen. Don't get discouraged, and you can do anything.
you can do literally anything.
I love that. So, okay, we're already running out of time, but I have one more question because I thought it was a really, really cool thing seeing you bring out your son on tour and have him go through different jobs in this touring environment. He was working merch. He was, I don't know, helping out here and there, but he was also doing sound. And I know John let him do monitors sometime.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
how how is that going? Is he going to start a touring career after all, taking over your legacy,
He's
basically?
absolutely in the midst of a touring career. It was funny because it like I mean the kid was on the Warp Tour when he was 4. Like he did the West Coast on the bus, and he'd been to Japan to like the huge. We did a Fat Records 25th anniversary in Japan when he was 10, and a bunch of us in that circle had kids about the same time. There's a photo of like Joey from Lagwagon and Mike's daughter and our English friends who include Lee, who plays keyboards in Snuff, and Tony Sly's kids were there. Sadly, though, Tony wasn't. And there's a shot of all of them like sitting on the edge of the stage in front of like 20,000 Japanese people. But
Wow.
he never, and so he kind of took it for granted. He never, we have a photo of him asleep on a road case backstage at Foo Fighters and when he was 10 or whatever. And then suddenly, like in his last year of high school, he had thought he was going to go into computer engineering like a kid that grew up in San Francisco when he was 10 years old. And by high school, he was like, I'm not sure. I like tech is weird and getting weirder. And I don't think I necessarily want a day job. And I came home from a short tour of Europe with the band LS Dunes. And he was like, I might like to try touring. So that summer, I was doing a few week headlining tour with LS Dunes. And I was talking to Tucker, the drummer, who wasn't bringing a drum tech. And then there was a whole M32 or X32 rig that I was going to be setting up and my microphones. And so I put it to him. I was like, what if I bring my kid and we teach him to set up the drums and we teach him to set up the mics? And so he ended up running the X32 on an iPad on that tour, and he enjoyed it. And from there, I don't know exactly how it went from A to B, but Brian, our merchandiser, who I know you know very well, needed an assistant for the farewell tour, especially the European leg in 2024. And, by then Oliver was 19 and big and strong. And he's like, you think Oliver would do it? And I was like, totally. And then Oliver ended up doing the whole year as Brian's assistant. And now his career is in merchandising. He has 2 tours coming up this spring, one with RKL and one with a band called Granddaddy, both of which he was hired by Sean, who does front of house for Lagwagon sometimes and is an old friend of mine. The RKL tour is especially fun because my wife and I basically met because of Dave, the drummer, and his way back ex-girlfriend, who was my wife's roommate. So it's kind of a cute full circle
Full
moment.
circle.
But he
Amazing.
also in Japan, we definitely, we always brought our merchandiser to oversee it, but you don't get to sell. You don't really even touch anything. So Brian hadn't needed an assistant in Japan, but John, our monitor guy, who was also playing guitar, always needed an assistant. So Oliver got to he came as John's assistant and basically was like, stood at the board and made any changes needed while John was playing guitar with the band, which then led to him in Europe, even though he was there as a merchandise assistant, when John had to fill in for Hefe, Oliver got to fill in for John and mix monitors on 2 of those shows in Hamburg and Copenhagen. So this is how wise my kid is. He's like, I like audio. It's super interesting and fun, but I really like money. And all of us touring people know that. I mean, he's like me. He likes to travel. He likes to eat good. And he likes to spend money. So, and anyone who's paying attention in touring in 2026 or 2025, when he said this, knows that merchandise is definitely where the money is these days. So he's
Yeah.
Don't listen, kids.
We do
Stay in audio.
We do it for the love of it. We love it. And yesterday, I have my desk. I just got all my gear back to my apartment and I set it up in my guest room. And yesterday I was fucking around with like old show files and like virtual soundcheck mode and my old multi-tracks. And I was like, oh, this is cool. This is fun. It's
That's
fun.
so fun.
It's a fun job.
I
Yeah.
know.
So I would still always choose to do audio.
I said for a long time, like people are like, "Oh, you still do sound," because of all the other hats I wore. And I said forever, I was like, if they wouldn't let me do sound, I wouldn't be here. Like I'm not just I may as well have a day job. So, and I'll be honest. Now that sound isn't the primary thing in my career, I've got some tinnitus. Not surprisingly, that's the biggest piece of advice: protect your ears.
Oh yeah.
But it's kind of inevitable. I mean, I think I got it more from fucking earpods, like exercising with music blaring right in my ear holes, because it really, like, I first really started to notice it during the pandemic when I would spend all day with earbuds in on Zoom and then exercising and then doing Zoom yoga. Like everything I did was fucking with audio signal this far from my eardrums.
Blasting.
I think it was far worse. Yeah, exactly. So you gotta keep the volume down on those. These are much better for that, though they look goofy. But I also did just buy a set of AirPods. I bought a normal set of AirPods for my new job because I spend a lot of time on video conferences, and Did that answer
Yeah,
the
maybe even
question?
more so in the future. Yes, it did.
Right?
Well, I hope to see Oliver on the road at some point, and I mean you again too. I'm sure I will, and I will come out if you have any shows, Billy Talent or any other band.
Yeah, we're
I'll
at
come out.
Arena. Hopefully you're home.
Oh,
I don't know if we
perfect.
discussed that. We're at Arena in mid-June. So,
I've been to that venue 3 times last week, and I'm going again this week.
I
It's
mean,
funny
it's like
because
you're home away from home. You were there last time I was there.
it's
So,
everyone's passing through at the moment. Like it's crazy. I have so many cool colleagues and friends coming through right now. This month is insane. Yeah, feel very
awesome.
lucky, but also very lucky that everyone who I don't see in person, I can connect with through podcasts and stuff like
Yeah,
that. So
right? No, this
thank you
is
so
super
much for doing
fun.
this.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
It's been an amazing talk, amazing episode once again with you, and I'm really excited to get this out in the world. I think you have to go to yoga soon,
I do,
right?
actually.
Morning yoga.
Uh, Morning yoga
And
is crucial, kids.
yeah, look after your bodies, look after your minds most of all.
100%. I mean, it does. It's as much from my mind as my body for sure. It resets both. I mean, there's so many hours of topics we could get into, but for me, having
Oh yeah.
been an abuser of substances, like when I finally got properly sober, completely, yoga was what kept me there. Like it motivates me every day. And other hobbies like golf and snowboarding. Like you can't do that shit properly hungover, especially when you're older. So protect your
Right.
ears and get sober, you fucking losers. That's my sign off.
That's the end
Goodbye.
of the episode. Bye.
Thanks, Connie.
Thank you, Kent.